Hello everyone, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Meg, and today, on this windy day, I'm finally gonna start my summer garden seeds, and I'm gonna be direct sowing some spring seeds right into the garden because now is the time. It's March, it's time to get spring seeds in the ground here in North Carolina. Whoa, what was that? North Carolina. Zone 8A. If you didn't know, I start all of my seeds in the greenhouse. Thankfully, I have a greenhouse and I don't have to do any indoor seed starting, which was the bane of my existence. I hated like having seed trays indoors. I know a lot of people love it. Seed starting is just not my favorite thing to do in general. I've talked about it before. I don't know. It's just not my favorite thing about gardening. It definitely feels like a chore that I don't want to do, but it has to be done. So let's make our way into the greenhouse. Unfortunately, the greenhouse in the winter months is kind of like a storage shed, and it's very messy. Like, it's embarrassingly messy. I don't even want to show you guys. You'll see glimpses of it. It is definitely one of the projects on the list to do this weekend, which is going to be the part 2 of the garden cleanup. If you missed part 1, check it out. So a little bit about my greenhouse. I got this about 4 years ago, although it did take a long time to put together. It took us about like 6 months to put it all together, to like lay the groundwork and put everything together. It was pretty difficult to put together. The brand is called Farm Tech, and I'm gonna rate it like a 7 out of 10. I like it, like I'm not complaining. I love this greenhouse. Would I buy it again? No. Just because it was so difficult to put together, I had to have my dad's help, and he is like in construction. So I feel like if you don't have like construction type of knowledge, it's really difficult to put together. I think like an upgraded greenhouse that I see in my future is like a pretty solid like greenhouse that you can't like put together. Like it's made with wood and glass instead of polycarbonate panels. That's what this one's made out of. But yeah, that's about my greenhouse. I use this for seed starting. I use it to extend the growing season of certain things. But in the winter, I use it as like a storage shed. But it's about to get a huge clean out, and we're gonna start some things in here. It also, I don't know if you can tell, because the polycarbonate panels are absolutely filthy. It needs to be pressure washed. It needs to be like, the whole outside needs to be cleaned, like really bad. So yeah, it's a huge project. I have my binder of my summer crops here. Today I'm just gonna start tomatoes and peppers, and I may do the rest another day, but we're gonna just start with the important ones first, because I did come out here kind of late and I'm losing daylight. So let's choose which tomatoes I want to go with. I have decided that I definitely want to stick to compact dwarf tomatoes this year. If you haven't watched my video advocating for dwarf tomatoes, watch it. It's on my channel. Dwarf indeterminate tomatoes are my new love in the garden. Indeterminate tomatoes, they can get so just big and tall and unruly and massive. They can take up a lot of garden space. They can require a lot of creative types of trellises that can be huge structures, and I'm just like, I'm too lazy for that. I don't like the look of the big tomato structures in my garden. I am a tomato lover, but like not that much. I do have issues with like the acidity and like indigestion and stuff with tomatoes, so they're not like my number one crop, and so I personally don't see the reason to put forth the effort in growing large indeterminate tomatoes and rigging them up in all different kinds of ways. So a way around that is either determinate tomatoes, which are small and compact, but they only have a set amount that they're gonna grow, and they usually like come in all at once. And a lot of the determinate tomatoes are like your canning tomatoes, your paste tomatoes. Because they come in all at once, it's great for canning. But my true love are indeterminate dwarf tomatoes. So indeterminate tomatoes, they grow all season long. They don't put out one flush like determinates. They kind of continuously pump out tomatoes, which is ideal. They can be slicers, so like the huge tomatoes. They can be cherry tomatoes. They can be medium-sized tomatoes. They can be everything. a group of gardeners, they formed this thing called the Dwarf Tomato Project, and they bred tomatoes over time to have this desirable trait of being indeterminate dwarfs, and I love them for that. Thank you. Dwarf indeterminates, like I said, they're going to produce tomatoes all season long, and they only get like 3 or 4 feet tall, the perfect size. So they only need like a simple stake, and that is my kind of thing. Just a wooden stake. That's all I want to deal with tomatoes. Or a simple cage, you know, just a good sturdy tomato cage. I don't want to be getting out a ladder to harvest my tomatoes. Although I have a lot of indeterminate tomatoes, I don't think I'm going to plant them this year. Unless I'm gifted some from some companies that I'm working with, like Burpee Gardening. I think that they're sending me a couple of indeterminate, which I do have some really tall tomato cages for those. So I'm going to try to stick to like 2 normal indeterminate varieties. The rest of them are going to be dwarfs. So all of these, though I love them, these are all indeterminates. Here's one that says dwarf tomato. Oh yes. Antho Pink Panther. I grew this one last year. I loved it so much. It's from Caramel Bella Farm. Very nice place to go to if you want really unique varieties. This tomato is just absolutely stunning. As I'm flipping through these, I have grown all of these and they're all good, unless I'll tell you if they're not really good, just because I have so many tomato seeds. So many. Berries Crazy Cherry. If you love a huge, over-the-top, out-of-control tomato, grow this one. It really do be crazy. This one is a bush type called Glacier, and I grew this one last year, and this one was really good. It's like kind of good medium-sized tomatoes, so yes. Okay, we are getting into the dwarves. I am for sure growing Purple Rain. This is like the dwarf version of Cherokee Purple. Super stout plants, really compact, really love that one. Also Rosella Purple. We're gonna grow that one. And then also Lemon Ice. This one has been so productive for me. We are also gonna grow some tomatillos. Everyone asks me how I get mine so big. It's because these are like a grande size, Grande Rio Verde. They're really big and I really like this kind. I've decided that I don't really like purple tomatillos. They're just a little too small for me. Ground cherry, 100%. You guys should know how I feel about ground cherries at this point. Can never have a garden without ground cherries. This Orange Hat, it's a micro tomato, and I have some containers that I want to grow those in. So here are all of the dwarfs that I haven't grown yet, or I did actually grow some of these last year, but some of them I didn't. So I'm gonna have to pick and choose because we already have a lot of tomatoes, but I definitely want to grow this dwarf Firebird, this dwarf Beauty King. I don't know if I have like a gold color in there yet. Actually, I might, but Amish gold. This dwarf Modern Roman. This is like a paste tomato. I'm gonna do dwarf Russian Swirl. Oh my god, I don't have enough space for all these tomatoes. This is getting crazy. Chocolate Lightning. Yes. Honestly, I'm probably just gonna start all of these seeds and then I probably won't have enough room for them and I'll just like give them the rest away. Now I think we're like out of the dwarf territory and I think we've reached the end. Actually, I am gonna grow this one this year. This was the $20 packet of seeds to grow the purple tomato. I have massive FOMO, and so I just want to see what all the hype is about. I know it's kind of crazy to pay $20 for a packet of seeds, but we're gardeners. This is what we do. So got all the tomatoes and tomato-like things. That's a lot. Now on to the peppers. First and foremost, I love this pepper. This is the only type of jalapeno that I'll grow from now on. It's called Megatron. They're huge. And why would you not want a bigger jalapeno? Definitely Serrano Classic. Definitely got to have some Poblano. I'm gonna skip the fish pepper this year. In my old age, my spice tolerance has kind of gone down. I bought all of these super spicy peppers years ago when I loved spicy stuff, and now I don't know, like I still like spicy stuff, but like my body doesn't like it. Like habaneros, and I do like this lemony color, so I think that goes. Oh, for sure, Sugar Rush Peach. These are so good. They're so fruity. They're delicious. Korean dark green. I love these as just like to put in like Asian food as just like a green chili. They're really good. Okay, I think that's probably good for the spicy peppers, except for we gotta have cayenne, obviously. Should I try to grow this again? I tried growing this and it just would not like start off well for me at all. So I think I'm gonna skip that one. It's like too hot for me. I don't know. I want to lean more into the sweet peppers this year. So for sure I want to grow this candy cane. These are beautiful. Sparkle peppers are always really pretty. Shishito, obviously. Lodge peppers are really cool. I just love like a pretty pepper. You guys know that like peppers are hard for me to pass up. I want to grow every single pepper. I love growing peppers. They're my absolute favorite to grow. I definitely want to grow paprika. Jimmy Nardello is always a good one. This is another type of paprika. Oh my gosh, I'm putting way too many peppers. Eco sweet pepper. Cornito Rosso. More common bell peppers. I think I'll just buy those as starts just to save myself some trouble. These are all cucumbers and we're not planting any of that yet. Let's skip to eggplant. Burpee is sending me their Midnight Moon eggplant as a starter plant, but I think I might just start some as a backup. These are the best eggplants I've ever grown. They're better than Black Beauty. They outperform Black Beauty. They're excellent. And I also kind of want to grow like an Asian eggplant, so let's go for Ping Tung Long. Not going to start okra yet, but I am going to start my roselle because if you've seen my last videos, my roselle harvest didn't go as planned last year. I didn't start it early enough. It takes forever to mature, so we're going to go ahead and start that too. Squash and stuff like that, we are not starting yet. It's too early for all of that, so I think we're good. This is all we're going to start today. All right, we got the bottom tray, and then should be enough cells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. What's 6 times 12? 68. So 68, yeah, this is enough. Now I'm gonna prep some soil. So I've got handy dandy bucket. This is the potting soil that I like to use for seed starting. It's the Fox Farm Ocean Forest. It's so good. I don't even use seed starting mix. I know that like a lot of people do, but I don't. I just use potting soil. You can start out with a seed starting mix. Seed starting mix just doesn't have any nutrition in it because seeds don't really need nutrition in order to germinate. And then we're starting them in such small cells that we're going to be up potting them. So some people find it like wasteful to start out with potting soil, but I think it's fine. That's just what I do. Fill this bucket up with potting soil. I'm going to go and moisten it. Make sure that the soil is very moist, and then I will be back. So I got my soil already, and now I'm just gonna start pressing it in. Kind of just make a mess, but it's like the quickest way to get your soil in here. This is why I hate like starting seeds. I just think it's so like messy. I don't know, like I'd rather just like skip to the part where they're plants and I plant them out in the garden, you know? I get each cell compacted, but not like too much. Let me know how you guys feel. Do you like starting seeds? Do you also hate it? Are you passionate about it? There's some people that are very, very passionate about it, and they're inspiring to me. Like honestly, I wish that I was. The thing that does really irk me when I see it happen in the gardening community is when people say, you're not a real gardener if you don't start from seed. And that is just so, I don't know, it really gets under my skin because that's not true in the slightest. First of all, not everyone can start seeds. In order to start your own seeds, you need a lot of indoor space, or you need a greenhouse, and that is just not accessible to everyone. Not everyone just like has the desire to go and buy a ton of seed starting supplies and finding somewhere to store them and having to harden off your seedlings. That's another thing. I mean, when you're hardening off seedlings, it requires a lot of time. It requires you to be home. People that are really busy and they have a 9 to 5 and then sometimes a 5 to 9 in today's society, like they just don't have the time to be doing this. So the people that say you're not a real gardener if you don't start your own seeds, like that is just so stupid. And it's not true. I think I've gotten every cell. I'm just like poking my fingers down. Because again, I don't want to like overpack it, but I want it to be pretty packed. So I'm just kind of pushing on each cell. Like that one just like caved in a lot. So I'm gonna add some more soil to it. Just making sure I didn't miss any. Like a sweep and sweep off the top any excess. Got them all full. Now it's time to plant the seeds. I need to hurry because I'm losing daylight, but I actually think I have less seeds than there are cells here, but that's okay. I'll find something to plant in them. I wanted to give you guys a little health update while I'm planting these, since I kind of have been bringing you along and I haven't had an update in a while. So I think I've updated everyone that like I had surgery. I removed half of my thyroid. The cancer's gone. The surgery was curative, thank goodness. So I'm not worrying about that anymore. I did adjust my thyroid meds. There was like a dip there for a while after the surgery. I felt awful. I felt awful for like a good 2 months after the surgery because my levels were so out of whack. When your thyroid levels are out of whack, it's awful. The way I can describe it is like you wake up in the morning and it's like trying to drive your car without any gas. Like you just there's no energy there and the brain fog is crazy and you just don't feel like a human being. If your thyroid is out of whack, you do not feel like a human being. It is awful, and it's unfortunately something that I've had to deal with my whole life. I knew that I was low immediately because that's just a feeling that I'm unfortunately all too familiar with. Got the chocolate lightning planted. So when I left you guys last about the brain lesion situation, I was seeing a neurologist and we were trying to figure out why I had brain lesions, and we were doing all kinds of blood tests and we were trying to rule out everything else that it could be besides MS, because unfortunately MS is like really hard to diagnose. There's no one test for it. It is a disease that is diagnosed through changes over time. So unfortunately, we just like my first appointment with him was like, okay, we've done these blood tests, all these are negative. But I'm not really presenting like a typical MS patient. I didn't like wake up one day and like not able to walk or not able to see or not able to talk or anything like that, thankfully. I just have these brain lesions, which this all started with twitching all over my body, which my neurologist thinks still is not related. So again, I got really lucky in that it was just coincidental that I got a brain MRI to check out the twitching all over my body, and the twitching is still like a question mark, and it's just this thing called benign fasciculation syndrome, which means that I have fasciculations and nobody knows why. It just is happening. So anyway, after the new year, my insurance changed and I had to switch doctors. My new insurance no longer covered my doctor, which I was okay with because I didn't quite like him anyway. He was one of those doctors where you go to see him and he's not even looking at you. He's just like typing. He's not looking at you. It doesn't feel like he's listening. And although he was being thorough in like all the testing he was doing, he didn't have a great bedside manner, and I didn't really like him that much. So I switched doctors, and I'm really glad that I did, because I found a doctor that I love. She explained everything to me so good, like clear as day. When I left my other neuro, I felt confused and I had more questions than answers. When I left my new doctor, all of my questions were answered, and I understand what is going on so much more clearly than I ever did. Basically, my new neurologist explained it this way. I have 14 lesions in my brain. We know that. The lesions are in places where MS lesions typically are. And in order to be diagnosed with MS, you have to like meet a bunch of criteria. And one of those criteria is you have to have lesions in 2 out of the 4 areas in the brain that are associated with MS. And I actually have lesions in 3 out of 4 places. So that was a huge check mark to her. But in order to be diagnosed with MS, you also have to show signs of a clinical relapse, which I didn't like really understand what that was, and I've never really had symptoms of that. Like, clinical relapse is like the kind of stuff like, yeah, you wake up and you just can't walk one day, or like you get drop foot, you get weakness in one arm or one leg, or you get optic neuritis and you have eye pain, or like something really drastic, which I've never had. Like, I feel like I've always had very subtle symptoms of MS. Like, I get dizzy all the time. I have brain fog. I have fatigue, but like those things can be correlated with like the Hashimoto's as well, and just chronic illness in general. Like when your body is chronically inflamed, like those are just kind of symptoms that can come about. So I never really thought about it, but I've never had clinical relapse. And so what my doctor said is what they call this is it's called radiologically isolated syndrome, meaning I have signs of MS on my brain, but like the symptoms just like aren't there. Unfortunately, I got my hopes up after that appointment with her, because she told me that 60% of people, when they're diagnosed with this radiologically isolated syndrome, they go on to develop MS within the next 10 years. And so I really was clinging on to that hope that I would be the 40% that I just never get another lesion in my life ever. She said that these lesions can sometimes happen just like spontaneously, especially with people with chronic illness. Like, just inflammation can sometimes cause them. And so I was really like clinging on to that hope and really hoping that I would be in that 40% instead of that 60%. Because she's really thorough, she wanted to do a lumbar puncture, whereas my previous neurologist did not want to do a lumbar puncture. I don't really know why. She said that getting a lumbar puncture can give us even more insight into if I truly have MS or not. Like, if this is really like the very beginning stages of MS and if I need treatment. In a lumbar puncture, they puncture like the covering of your spine. I cannot remember what it's called, but they collect cerebrospinal fluid, and they're measuring these things called oligoclonal bands. I also don't know if I'm saying that right, but they're called O bands. And a high number of O bands indicates chronic levels of inflammation in the central nervous system. I think it's like 97% of MS patients have high numbers of O bands. So although it isn't like a clear-cut test as like you have MS if you have high O bands, because like other things can cause it too, just with the lesions, if I tested positive for O bands, it would be an even more clear indicator like, okay, this is MS. I had my lumbar puncture about a week ago, and I got my results back a couple of days ago, and it was positive for O bands. I had 9, and anything above 4 is considered positive and suspicious for MS. This is looking like this is MS. And my next appointment with her is going to be to discuss treatment options. So I am going to get started on an MS treatment, and I mean, I'm going to be honest, like, I was super bummed. When I found this out, I did crash out a bit. I mean, it sucks. Like, it just sucks. I'm trying to look on the bright side as much as I possibly can, because at the end of the day, like, that's all you can do, right? Like, it is what it is. All you can do at this point is try to find a silver lining. So the silver lining for me is that we found this. We found this before I did develop debilitating symptoms that could be permanent. I mean, brain lesions, when they occur, if they pop up in the wrong spot, they can cause really debilitating symptoms. Thankfully, I have not been debilitated at all, and this was caught really early, and I am able to start treatment to hopefully prevent ever becoming debilitated in any way. Hopefully. MS is a scary disease. It's something that's always scared me. The most frustrating thing about autoimmune disorders is that, like, compared to the cancer, like we found it, we immediately got it out and it's gone. With autoimmune disorders, like, it's not that simple. And I'm not speaking for all types of cancers. I'm just speaking for, like, my experience with cancer. Like, this feels a little worse, like, than, like, my thyroid cancer, and I'm having a harder time with it, is what I'm trying to say. Autoimmune disorders, there's no cure for MS. Thankfully, we do live in a day and age where there are great treatments for MS, so I'm, like, really hopeful, and I'm glad that, you know, I'm getting started on a treatment. But it's also scary. Like, you're being pumped full of drugs and medications, and I've always been someone that is really, like, scared of medication. I don't like taking it. When you have autoimmune conditions, like, that's just your reality. Like, you rely on these medications because your immune system is trying to kill you. Like, my body is trying to kill me, and I don't know why. And I think that that's one of the most frustrating things about autoimmune conditions, is trying to understand why your body wants to kill you. So if you have MS and you're on a treatment for MS, I would love to hear about it in the comments if you are willing to share, or privately you can message me on Instagram, just because I'm curious. I know that there's a lot of different options and ways to go. Basically, the treatments for MS, they are just trying to stop any more lesions from happening. They're called DMTs, which is, like, disease modifying therapies, and it's just, like, to slow the progression. Like, that's the goal, is to either slow or altogether halt, hopefully, the progression, because MS can be a progressive, debilitating disease if you don't do these therapies. So again, it's like, there's not really a choice. Like, I don't have a choice. And over these past 6 months, I've just had to get used to this new normal of going to so many doctor's appointments. Like, I've gone to so many more doctor's appointments in the last 6 months than I have in my entire life. And I've been poked and I've been prodded, and I literally, like, my, like, whatever this is called is just so worn out, like, from all of the blood that's been drawn and the lumbar puncture. I do not wish that on anybody. That was awful. That was a kind of a traumatic experience for me. I never want to have that done again. But just, like, yeah, the poking and the prodding, I'm over it. And this is why I love having gardening in my life, because I am staying calm while talking about this. When in the past, like, few days, I have not been able to remain calm, but I'm sowing seeds right now, and I am staying calm, and that is what gardening does for me. This Purple Rain, I think if I had to pick a favorite, it might be the Purple Rain or the Rosella Purple out of all of these dwarf tomatoes. On a brighter note, I am really excited to be getting these seeds started. I think, like, also having all of this stuff go on in the winter has been, like, a double whammy, because I also have very bad seasonal affective disorder, and I get so seasonally depressed. It's crazy. So I think all this happening in the winter, yeah, it's just made it a lot worse. I think I think I'm gonna feel better when it starts warming up, 100%. It's hard to be vulnerable on the internet. I'm done talking about all of that now, and let's get back to the fun part of starting seeds. All I gotta say is these better be some good tomatoes, because this, for $20, you only get like 10 seeds. That's crazy. That is what, $2 per seed? I always have to put at least two seeds in the hole as a backup. So there's $4 right there. Our starting tomatillos. Do not forget to plant more than one plant. Tomatillos are not self-fertile, so they'd have to cross-pollinate in order to fruit. I think that is one of the most common mistakes when planting tomatillos. I get so many comments like, I planted a tomatillo and nothing's happening, what's wrong? And I'm like, it's because you planted a tomatillo. You have to have multiple. So I always do 3. That way I have a backup. I'm gonna put one of these, and I'll just have to remember that that's like all tomatillo. Brown cherry seeds are so tiny. I actually probably don't even need to be planting ground cherry seeds because they're probably gonna pop up all over my garden. Micro tomatoes, these orange hats, because I want to have them in some pots. Seeds are so tiny. Did I just get bitten by a mosquito? Oh my god, it is March. Are you kidding me? Pro tip, if you didn't know, write with pencil on your tags, because if you do it with Sharpie, they're gonna rub off. If you do it with pencil, something about like the lead, it stays all season long. You're welcome. Tomatoes done, and that only took up 3 of these. I think the peppers are gonna probably also take up 3, so I'm gonna have a lot left. It's Midnight Moon hybrid. I'm just gonna plant like a whole 6 cell of them, and then I can give any extra to my neighbor because I think that she would really like this eggplant. She loves eggplant. She's Filipina and she loves eggplant. So maybe if I give her eggplant, she will make me sinigang. Sinigang is seriously like one of my favorite dishes, I think ever. Like ever. It is so comforting. Oh, I could really go for some sinigang right now. Okay. I'm gonna stop filming so that I can go a little bit quicker because I'm losing daylight and I need to finish this. Here's what we got. We got the tomatoes over here. These only have 1 tag because like I did the same thing per 6 cell. And then I got the peppers here and the roselle there. And then I have some extra free space and I'll have to just figure out what to plant there. I think I'm going to wrap up this video here because it kind of turned into like a seed starting vlog / health update kind of thing. So I'm going to do the direct sowing out in the garden in a different video because I've also got things like potatoes and summer bulbs that I need to plant out too. So that can be a whole separate thing. But thank you guys for watching and listening to me yap and just hanging out with me while I start my very first summer seeds. I'm so excited for summer. I cannot wait. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Substack. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.